Hey, what's good, everybody? This is your boy Ced Banner, and this is my review of Halloween. So this is I've lost count. The original Halloween. Let's just do a real quick review here. The original Halloween came out, was released by the horror master John Carpenter in 1978, 40 years ago, 5 years before I was even born. And the film really it set the tone for slasher flicks. But for me, especially watching it as a kid and when I go back and watch it now, it's really impressive how far ahead of its time it was, just when it comes to how the movie was shot. The cinematography, the camera work in the original film is even still to this day pretty amazing. It opens up on one of those continuous shots where there are no cuts in the action or in the scene. There are several different scenes involving the killer, Michael Myers, that are shot in a way that you just didn't see happen in any films back then in that time, and not for about another 25 to 30 years. So John Carpenter really kind of stepped into the future. Since then, there have been several sequels. There have been reboots by Rob Zombie. Did a reboot. I remember one coming out back in like '98 when I was in high school. They had Jamie Lee Curtis, and it was to commemorate the 20th anniversary. And it was pretty bad. Had LL Cool J in it. I remember that too. There just really hasn't been a deserving sequel or spinoff or reboot made yet. So of course I went into this film very skeptical. I will say that the film comes on, it starts off with the same exact opening credits as the 1978 original. That excited me. When I saw the opening credits, I was like, okay, so maybe they're gonna get it right, and they're gonna really kind of go along the lines of the original. This story picks up 40 years, of course, after the original incident that happened in the original film. It pretty much ignores all other sequels and spin-offs, thank God. It pretty much just this is acting as if it's the first and only sequel made since the first film was released. And that gave me a huge sigh. And there were a lot of fans in the screening that I was watching, I could tell, and you could tell that they really enjoyed a lot of the scenes and a lot of the nods that were given in this film to the original. It does star Jamie Lee Curtis. She is still at it, and she still has it. Jamie's bad, man. Like, even back then, like, Jamie was kind of she wasn't a cougar yet. She wasn't a cougar yet or anything. She was young, but she stood out amongst all the, young girls they used in these slasher flicks because she was tough. She wasn't one of these, dumb characters that they make that just runs through the woods and trips. She actually thought as things were happening, and that made her a cool character. She hasn't changed here. For the past 40 years, she's been preparing for Michael's return. There are a lot of little funny lines in this film if you are a fan of the original Halloween. That kind of makes fun of some things that have happened since then, like them saying that Michael was Jamie Lee Curtis's brother, or her character's brother. They fix a lot of those issues and kind of throw jabs at them. And there's a lot of little funny one-liners and zingers thrown into the script here. As far as the scares, like I always say, horror flicks now just really it's hard for them to scare me. It has to feel real. And I will say about this one, it does a good job of kind of recapturing that essence of the original film, where John Carpenter basically shot it in a way that made you feel like you were hiding in these closets with these people. You were running down the hallways with these victims. It kind of puts you back there, and it makes it enjoyable. I don't know if it's necessarily just scary. There's some disturbing scenes, but it's pretty good, compared to everything else we get now in terms of horror. They do a good job. The director is David Gordon Green, I believe is his name, who I've never heard of. Don't know anything about any of his other work. I think he's done mostly independent work. But he pretty much took this film, made sure to do it in a way that would be pleasing to the creator, John Carpenter, as well. Thankfully, they're producers on this film, as they were with the first one, and you can see their fingerprints all over the film, the final product. Yeah, as far as the cons of this film, pretty much like every other horror film we get, there maybe are a couple of scenes that were a little too predictable, I think. it doesn't necessarily get cliche, but it does take a lot of the elements that we've come to be used, or yeah, we've gotten accustomed to seeing in these slasher and horror flicks, and it kind of turns them on their side and finds a way to still make them enjoyable, and I appreciated that. It's a fun movie, I will say that. It's a great date movie. If you are a fan of the original, I don't think you'll be disappointed. This film is enough to actually be called a sequel to Halloween. There are, as I said, there are a lot of nods to the original in this film. What I really loved was that the soundtrack was pretty much original, just like the original film. It was set up to sound and have that same eerie presence that the original film had, and that worked out very well. A lot of the cinematography, the camera work is also the same. The pacing is even about the same also, so just when it feels like it might be getting too slow, it picks up. It never really drags on too long, you know, in one particular pace or speed. So it's kind of a thrill ride, but it does a great job of paying homage to the first film. And I really Halloween is the first fitting sequel. I'll put it that way. And if you weren't a fan of the original, you won't be a fan of this one. So I can't really tell you if it's good or it's bad. It's just a fitting sequel to the first film. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I'm not mad at it. It didn't feel dumb to me like all the other creations they've made since then have. So yeah, I think it's well worth the money to go see and get a few jumps in the theater. Yeah, so that does conclude this review. My next review will be for whatever comes out next. So until then, hey,